Anyway, so I was thinking about sports, and I think, when you think about sports, and you are an equestrian by trade, and it's just so common to see coaching in sports, like kind of like intuitively, you don't think about sports and coaching. If you're a sports person, you automatically know you need a coach.
Yeah.
But coming in as a woman in the tech industry, coaching is something I'm only starting to challenge myself about, to say, okay, I know I need a coach.
Yeah.
But that's really the starting point for me, because, unlike sports where you go like, okay, if you want to train to be an elite athlete, then, you have to have the right coach to support you to achieve your goals, whether you're playing as an individual or as a team.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come to you because you're the first coach and I've known you as a coach forever. So I wanted to ask you all of the questions around coaching, all of the things in my head that I know I need, but maybe don't realize I need yet from a coaching perspective. I'm just looking for you to help me understand the importance of coaching and what it could do to help shape a career in tech. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that coaching is lots of different things, and you'll hear it named lots of different things, and it means different things to everyone. So there's coaching, there's mentoring, there's advising, there's lots of different stuff. So coaching, from my perspective, just to define it really, is having someone that you come to, we set a defined goal that you're heading towards.
Yes.
And even in setting of that goal, there's lots of elements to making sure it's the right goal for you and it's in line with who you are as a person and that kind of thing. And then it's basically helping you overcome any barriers, any setbacks, any blockers in yourself, or potentially external ones as well, that are to get you there and to get you there quicker. So the idea of coaching really is that you probably could have gotten yourself there in, let's say 3 years time.
Yeah.
With a coach, we can accelerate that to maybe a year or something, because what you've got that different perspective, that external set of eyes, who's able to listen to what you're saying and go, you realize you just said that, didn't you? Or what does that really mean to you? Or what's really going on then? Because you've just talked about this, but I don't reckon it is. I think it's something else.
Yeah.
And just to kind of give you a different perspective to help you work out. And coaching is very much about the coach helps the coachee to find their own best answers. So it's not about advice. And actually, I wouldn't be able to advise you in the tech world anymore anyway, because I'm so out of it that I wouldn't be able to do that. But what I can do is help you to uncover you at your best, help you to uncover what gets in your way, help you to uncover what derails you, help you to spot things quicker, or realize when they're out of alignment and they're causing you a problem, and overcome that stuff.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. And it's just said that, I'm just thinking, well, how do I set out finding the right coach for me? And the challenge here in setting a vision, I was discussing around career goals with Desola the other day about, sometimes you might know, for example, what your short-term plan is, but in terms of putting that in the frame of, where you want to be in the next 5 years, next 10 years, it's not always visible, right? So how can a coach help me realize what I want to do and what goals I should be setting? Because I think that's definitely a starting point in knowing where you want to head before you even get out. But if I don't know where I'm heading, how can a coach help me find that target?
Yeah. So sometimes it may not be like a super obvious, tangible thing like a job role. It may not be that. It might just be that actually what you're looking at is the kind of lifestyle that you want and the kind of things that you want in your, from life, and that actually career-wise, you're then able to find something that works with that lifestyle, because, you've got kids and things, so that's got to fit in and stuff like that. So the coaching methodologies that I use, we look at what's important to you as a human. We look at what you find, we call them your values, what's important to you, what things do you live by, what and in some ways we say, what would your ideal life be in 5 years time, vision that, imagine that, and then we'll fill in the gaps for it. So sometimes it can be that someone's headed for a particular role or something they want, but what we tend to find when that's the case is that actually they're going for the role, but they might be going for it for the salary, the kudos, something they've always just wanted, and actually it might not be right. Whereas I come at it from a point of view of what lifestyle do you want? What do you want to be doing? Not literally, but as in what kind of, how much time do you want to be spending on things? How much energy do you want to put into stuff? What kind of a house do you want to live in? What kind of a lifestyle do you want? How much time do you want with your kids? You know, do you what do you want to be doing? And we look at it that way, and then that's your foundational work, and then you build the other stuff up to create that life. Because 5 to 10 years time, we don't know what's going to come along the way.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If you've got a clear idea of what you want, there might be a job role that comes up that you wouldn't have considered before, that you think, well, actually, hang on, that might seem sideways, but that's actually going to get me closer to what I really want than perhaps the obvious one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it does put things into perspective for me personally, because it's all of those things. And one tangible example was around cars, because I always liked a particular kind of brand. I wouldn't name it here, but I held that dream for a long time, and just sat on the back burner. It wasn't something I could afford to do immediately, you know, because there was all sorts of constraints. But if I had put that to say, well, my job would unlock this for me, because then it fits in with my value this way, then it makes sense. And it starts to open up that perspective to say, well, right, if you want to head this way, this is what it means to you, and this is the activity that will facilitate that happening. So I think that's a really, really good point.
That's exactly it. And the nice part is that when we're looking at values and things that are important to people, above values sits what we call our capabilities and skills. Above that sits our behaviors, what we're actually doing and saying, and above that sits our environment. When all of those things are in line, we feel good. We feel like everything's going the way we want it to. We're happy in our work. We're happy with what we're doing, or whatever it is. When any of those aren't in line, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're in the wrong environment to be fulfilling what's right for us from a values perspective. And that's very much where I found my career was, you know, it was, and it didn't matter what I did to change that environment. The important bit was never in line.
Yes.
So I had to do something about it. And so what I had to do is change my behaviors, which to me meant my job role, which meant change my skills and capabilities to something that fitted with what was then in alignment. And now it's in alignment, it makes a huge difference.
Yes.
So you're absolutely right. The great thing about knowing a little bit about where you want to go, and below beliefs and values sits who we are as a person and our mission and our vision. So even lower is the bigger stuff. But when you're in line with what's important to you, then it is exactly about the behaviors, because you make decisions based on a clear concept of where you want to be. And you can say, is this going to help me or hinder me? Is this going to get me further away from or closer towards what I want? And then you've got a framework to make decisions within. Yeah, and that's powerful.
It is so much, and it's one of the things I remember, even though we hadn't been in contact for a long time, about you. It was so strong. You were so clear on your goals that even many years ago, I always knew you wanted to be in coaching, because that was all you talked about. That was all you talked about when we were at Ericsson together. You were a PM at the time, but also like, oh yeah, you know, coaching. I don't even think we had a conversation where you didn't talk about coaching. And this was been,
oh man,
you know, nearly
sorry,
10 years. Nearly 10 years ago now, or maybe, I don't know, maybe not quite 10, but you know, you had that focus so early on in your career, which I think to this day just, you know, blows me away. And to see what you've created with Flying Changes Mindset, you know, I'm not surprised, because that's been your focus from day one. So I wanted to ask, what was there something in particular which helped you develop that single-mindedness around what you wanted to pursue, or was it just always inherently in you from the beginning?
Well, I think, you know, obviously I've set a business up around a passion of mine, which was horses, and there was no way I was going to be able to pursue that passion as
Mm.
anything other than a hobby while I was working in telecoms. Like, you know, like we always joked that, well, there's no way I can bring a horse into the office, so I'm probably in the wrong environment, you know.
Yes.
And although I actually, weirdly enough, I don't work with horses, I work with human brains now. But I get to go to horsey events and talk about horses as part of what I do because of the people that I work with. But you know, the values piece again was the most important thing for me. And I've got this really clear vision of what I want. You know, I want to have my horses at home. I want a lovely kind of place in the countryside where, you know, kids can run around and be free and have animals. And, you know, that's just something I've always loved. And it was looking at my career and thinking, well, I possibly could have that, but actually it just wasn't in line with what was really important to me. And I think I've just, because I started learning about this stuff at 21, when I was at university, I've always understood this concept of values and mission. And so for me, it's always helped me make decisions because I've had a clarity of what I'm making a decision based upon. And I think that's, you know, although I was enjoying my time in telecoms and I had a ball and I had a great career and I got to a really great point in that career, it just wasn't in line with what I really wanted. And that just made every day hard. It just made every day hard work.
And that's such a good point, because one of the statistics I've got, and I go back to, is around how women feel about the work they do. And I don't think it's a surprise, but 50% of all women everywhere, and I guess based on two of us, 100%, you know, we want to feel a sense of purpose, you know, in the work we do. And we want to feel that, you know, the company we work for, their values is aligned to what we want to pursue. So for me, technology has been a big part of my life. I don't think it takes anyone 2 cents to figure that I love tech, and I'm excited about tech and testing and all of that. And you know what, for me, it's something I've grown to embrace, not something, you know, like your journey where you've always known. It's something I've just gone, oh, well, that's a good thing for me. And I actually like it. So for me, I've grown to like what I do, and I've discovered, you know, this is the right thing for me. This is where I want to be and all of that. But it is something that aligns with me. I would say I'm in perfect alignment because it allows me to express myself to the full ability, and I'm growing in that confidence every day. So I think in terms of coaching and where our conversation started, it's really what can I expect a coach to do for me? So I know what my values are. I've discovered what those values are. How can I take that to the next step? What do I need to do?
Yeah, so what a coach would do then is they'd work with you to help you understand where you're in line with those values, where you're out of line with those values, look at those different elements I was talking about on what we call the map. Is it your environment that needs to change? Is it your skill set that needs to change? Is it something about who you are? Is there some past stuff going on for you that's still driving the way you behave from your future? You know, without going too much into this, every single human is driven somehow by past experience, good or bad.
Yes.
And when we have bad past experience, we try and protect ourselves from it by creating what we call coping mechanisms, and they're fine. They work short term, but most of them don't work long term. And a great coach is really good at helping identify, hang on a minute, that's actually not a helpful behavior. That's not actually a helpful thing. Is there a better way of doing it? Do you need to look into something? Do you need to work on an area that's not related to work? You know, and so the people that get the most out of coaching are the ones that are most open to the fact that we're a human being and we cannot put stuff in boxes. We like to think we can put our lives into different areas, but we're not. We're intertwined because we're a human. And that at work, stuff that happened personally is going to affect us and things. So, you know, it's understanding that and being able to work out how we can become a better person. That's a terrible way of putting it. You know, just be more aware, much more self-aware of things, and having someone that can see our blind spots, because we can. I have my own coach. You know, I have my own coach because I can't see my own blind spots. Having someone that can do that for you and just kind of hold you to it and hold you to account as well, and say, you said you were going to do that thing. Why haven't you done it if you haven't done it? Because that will often be, that gives me so much more information as a coach than when people go off and do stuff. You know, because it's like, what was the reasons why you didn't? You said you were going to, and then you didn't.
Yeah.
How come? What's really holding you back?
Yeah, and I guess on on that note, it's about unlearning behaviors, right? Because I have a very good example that I reflect on frequently. So when my kids were much younger, I took them to swimming, and through that process, I developed a fear of one of them having an accident at the pool because they were only little, but for many years I carried that fear on, even though their swimming ability had progressed. There was nothing to worry about. And what even made it worse, there was only one point of concern in the whole area, and the rest of it, they would be fine. So it took me 3 years to realize that I kept the same fear, even when their abilities had progressed. There was no longer any concern. And even if I was still concerned, there was just really one place I needed to be at, and we could all enjoy ourselves. And when I realized that, then I finally dropped that baggage. But it was 3 years of holding on to the same thing, which was no longer relevant.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And that's where coaching would have caught that quickly and not taken you 3 years. So it's not that you can't work this stuff out for yourself. Of course you can. You absolutely can, and people do. But the reason, in my previous career, I was in talent management.
Yeah.
And we used to get in executive coaches for people, because not because we thought they had a problem or they needed fixing or anything like that, but because we knew that coaching process would accelerate them towards what they wanted. And that's what it's really about. It's a catalyst.
And that word executive coaching, I guess, is another thing in my view that is a barrier for many people starting out maybe in tech or other places in the industries, that we don't, as an industry, actively offer coaching opportunities to people starting out. So we would offer them to CEOs because we know they have huge responsibility and all of that, but it's not a great, you're starting a job today and here's your coach. It's not something that is on offer these days, is it?
No, and it's a real shame, because actually it's such a useful thing for everyone to have at any level. I mean, we were on graduate schemes and things together, weren't we? And we still didn't have really coaches. We had more mentors.
Yes.
Which, is at least people that help us accelerate a bit quicker, but they're not trained to see our blind spots and things, whereas coaches are. But you're right, I do think it's a real shame, actually, that in a lot of corporate world, you only really get great coaches when you're further up the levels. Part of that probably is to do with the cost. Coaching is not a cheap thing, because to get a great coach and have one-on-one time with that person, that's an expensive. It depends how you look at it, doesn't it? There's a high value to that.
Yeah, but I guess, same function as, talent management, mental health first aiders, and, all sorts of the different business functions we have. Companies could approach coaching as a function, right? Where we, instead of having talent management or HR to get people in through the door, you establish coaching as an investment for the business itself. Yeah. So, you can retain the people you keep, or at least help them develop and give more benefits to the business in the time they're with you, because people will move on
of course. And certainly that is being done. So my husband is he's now a senior leader in a very big global IT company, big American IT company, and he's worked his way up through the ranks and things. And he, in all of his leadership roles, has been taught to coach in his leadership role. So as a leader, he's taught to coach his people. But I think the difference is that they can have the great conversations, but he's still their manager.
Yes.
And I think the nice thing about external coaches is that we're completely impartial. We're not even part of the company. So I think, companies are doing things to get coaching in. I think it's really important. It's just a case of considering who is the best placed person to be the coach in that environment, for sure.
And can anyone be a coach?
Anyone can try. Yeah, it's a skill set. It's absolutely, it's a skill set you learn to do. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone can learn. There's models that you can use. There's skills that you can learn. It's mostly about listening, but you do need some models behind the listening to then know where to go to help people. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time listening and make no difference.
Yeah.
But the biggest skill is listening, really.
No, that is really good, because I'm thinking particularly about mental health first aiders, and or not just mental health, but first aiders. We train people to be first aiders, right? So I guess one way to make it more accessible to everyone will be to train coaches, right? For people to go speak to, have sessions with, and go, like, how am I doing? And it's not necessarily me as a line manager, because while I can take on the role of a coach if I'm trained to do that, I've still got the responsibility of day-to-day delivery I need to manage. So they're not necessarily one and the same job, even though I can fulfill that function for some of the time, but it's not all of the time. So I do think getting people trained the same way we look at first aid, wellness, and other business support functions, this could be a business function as well, because I don't think it's widespread in any of the industries I've worked in. So even when we joined Ericsson, yes, we had a graduate scheme, it was structured, but outside that scheme, there wasn't any ongoing coaching outside review with your line manager, which is set for different things. It's a different business objective. So I think it's definitely a good point.
It is, and I think it's also why it's such a hugely growing industry. It is grown so fast in the last decade, because it's so needed in everything. And I've just niched down into a sector that I love. But yeah, no, I think it's really important.
Good. And are there any specific coaching models you would recommend for people who are possibly looking into maybe getting trained, and I think line managers in particular, because I think it's quite a good skill, because we always speak to people, and I believe over time, I won't say if you're a good manager, but a good manager, you should get to know people you work with. I know not everybody's people centric, but I think as a line manager you should be, and I think coaching is one of those skills that can really add value to being a line manager. So I think it would be good to know if there are any models to start up to say, this is a basic framework, this is how to coaching.
I think if you're looking into courses and bits and pieces, anything by the Institute of Leadership and Management, the ILM, they do loads of great things. There's some super companies around that do anything to do with coaching qualifications. I mean, obviously the modality that I am trained up to master trainer level in is something called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. Even that stuff was in our graduate program. I mean, I was a practitioner when we were doing the graduate program. I could see it coming a mile off, So although specifically NLP doesn't teach you how to coach, it does give you the skills required. And then you just use a model, like something like the GROW model or something like that. There's loads of models around for coaching things. And there's tons and tons of it. If you were to just Google coaching methodologies, I mean, you'd find so many of it and so many companies that are offering it. And then you just find the one that you think is a good fit for you and works the way that you want it to. You can learn online now. There's loads of really great courses online that will help you just have some concepts and models while you're having conversations. And I do totally agree with you. I mean, I have some interesting conversations with my husband about, how he starts with new teams, because he's moved jobs, he's moved teams and all this sort of thing. And he always says it's got to be about the people first, because if you want them to do their best and get the best for you and hit their targets and do everything that you need them to do as a line manager, you've got to get to know them as a person. Now, that doesn't mean you need to have big heart-to-hearts, but you need to know what's going on for them, and and how to help them through that and how to support them. And I think as much as telecoms is a very male-dominated industry, that sort of feminine side of things about getting to know people and this concept of community and looking after each other and supporting each other is really important, no matter what sex you are, because men need support just as much as women do. We're humans. We cannot survive on our own. We can't. And just supporting someone can sometimes just be listening to whatever's going on for them, not dismissing it, not saying, well, that's not relevant, it's not to do with work. Because we all know, don't we, if we've got stuff going on outside of work and we come in, we're distracted, we're not really thinking straight, we might miss things, we're not really at our best. Now, I'm not saying that managers somehow need to become counsellors or anything like that, but they do need to know what's going on with their people and be aware of that.
I think it helps, because personally I find if I know what's going on with with someone, maybe a life change, or I use myself as an example, a new baby, or a toddler who doesn't sleep,
Yeah.
then it helps me gauge what that expectation from that person to be. It doesn't say I'm expecting a lower quality of work. It just means, I give the person the flexibility they need to be their best,
Yep.
regardless of the circumstance. So I think in all circumstances, if you work with people, you're right, you should be in tune. I guess it's part of the territory with leadership and management, and it's not one of those things people can tell you how to do. But I think coaching is a really good way to fine tune and to help people, right? Because it's always about helping people develop and become the best version of themselves, and not necessarily just saying we're here to deliver as a business and we will deliver. Yes, we will deliver, but we want to deliver and give people a sense of pride in their achievement, and not feel like we've delivered, but we've bruised everyone and we're all burned out at the end. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, thank you, Jenni. I found this extremely useful. And I guess the big action for me now is finding a coach or the right coaches. So, I mean, what's your opinion? Is it to find a once and for all coach, or is it, try, see what works, and then?
I think the thing with coaching, and the reason that I always do a half an hour free call with someone if they want to come to me, and actually I only now do one-to-one coaching at sort of more of an elite level, really. The rest of it I actually do through coaching programs, group coaching programs, because of what we're working with. But I would say do the calls with the people and see who you click with, because you know what you need. But in a good coach, you need someone who listens really well. It doesn't have like their own agenda. They're working on your agenda, but they're going to push you towards your agenda, and that you feel you can open up to and get along with, because actually that's the most important part, that you click. So I would say, have a look around, see what's around, and just see who you think you're going to gel with enough that they can push you, make you accountable, ask you the difficult questions, but you feel they've got your back as well. That's the most important part, is that they've got your back. They want you to succeed as much as you do, or more than sometimes, actually. So push you over the difficult parts and help you out.
Yeah, I think one of the first things I would ask my coach to do for me is to help unlearn behaviors.
Yeah.
Because I know over the years in my journey and growth as a person that there is a lot of baggage I've picked up through my career. So I could do with losing a lot of those. So I think that would be definitely one of the first things I would look to try to unpack, because I find, sometimes the things that prevent us from moving ahead, it's not necessarily a lack of opportunities, but it's in the barriers we have developed over time. So we've knocked ourselves out of the competition before we even started mentally. So I think for me, that's one of the first things I would like to do with a coach, just to get rid of some baggage.
I think that's really key. Is so much of the time, sometimes it's not that you need to learn something new, it's that you need to find out what's holding you back and unlearn something that isn't helpful. 100%. Yeah, that's a key in a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. So at least I'm on the right track. I just need to find
that's it.
Find the right coach now. Well, thank you, Jenni. I think it's been a wonderful conversation, and thank you again. It's great to see how Flying Changes has grown, and I'm glad we are catching up again, and hopefully we'll catch up in person soon.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.